Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotera Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotera Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki. Gangamaya Ki Jai. Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. Shri Nishringadev Ki Jai. Shri Gopal Ki Jai. Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. If you're wondering why I was smiling at Ganga Mantri. He had walked by. I was smiling behind the window. And I saw you look. I was smiling. You looked back there. I saw Ganga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Mudirayet
Tato Jayam Hridayam.
Nastapreshu Bhadreshu
Nastaprayasya Bhagaveshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Shevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavate Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttam Shloke.
Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you all for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Very auspicious. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 4:22:11. Is Ananta here? Yeah. Oh, you're here. Okay. I was gonna say, what was the when you have a V at the end of a line, there's something you do, right? Oh, maybe Suresh or someone. I thought it was you who told me that because the V usually flows in, but there's something that Dravida said to do when there's a V at the end of the line. Yeah, but Dravida does something. Yeah, he does something a little different when that happens. Vyalalaya Druma Vaiteshva
Yalalaya Druma Vaiteshva.
Arikta Kila Sampada
Arikta Kila Sampada.
Yagrihastir the Padiya
Yagrihas Tirtapadiya.
Pada Tirtha Vivarjita
Adatirtha Vidajita.
Vyalalaya Druma Vaitesh
Yalalaya Druma Vaiteshva.
Arikta Kila Sampada
Arikta Kila Sampada.
Yagrihastir the Padiya
Yagrihas Tirtapadiya.
Pada Tirtha Vivarjita
Adatirtha Vidajita.
Vyalaya Druma Vaitesh
Yalalaya Druma Vaiteshva.
Arikta Kila Sampada
Arikta Kila Sampada.
Yadgrihastir the Padiya
Yagrihas Tirtapadiya.
Pada Tirtha Vivarjita.
Adatirtha Vidajita.
Go.
Vyalalaya Druma Vaitesh.
Vyalalaya Druma Vaitesh
Arikta Kila Sampada.
Arikta Kila Sampada
Yadrihas Tirtapadiya.
Yadgrihastir the Padiya
Adatirtha Vivarjita.
Pada Tirtha Vivarjita.
Yalalaya Druma Vaitesh.
Vyalaya Druma Vaitesh Arikta Kila Sampada Yadgrihastir the Padiya Pada Tirtha Vivarjita.
Yalalaya Druma Vaitesh.
Yalalaya Druma Vaitesh.
Arikta Kila Sampada.
Arikta Kila Sampada.
Yagrihas Tirtapadiya.
Yadrihas Tirtapadiya.
Adatirtha Vivarjita.
Adatirtha Vivarjita.
Yalalaya Druma Vaiteshva.
Yalalaya Druma
Vivarjita.
Arikta Kila Sampada.
Arikta Kila Sampada
Adiya
Yadgrihastir the Padiya Pada Tirtha Vivarjita. Vyalalaya Druma Vaitesh Arikta Kila Sampada Yagriyastirtha Padatirtha Vivardita. Word for word. Vyala, venomous serpents. Alaya, home. Drumaha, tree. Vai, certainly. Teshu, in those houses. Arikta, abundantly. Akila, all. Sampada, opulences. Yat, Griya, sorry. Griya, houses. Tirthapadiya, in relationship with the feet of great saintly persons. Padatirtha, the water which washed their feet. Vivarditaha, without. Translation. On the contrary, even though full of all opulence and material prosperity, any householder's house where the devotees of the Lord are never allowed to come in, and where there is no water for washing their feet, is to be considered a tree in which all venomous serpents live. Please repeat. On the contrary. Even though full of all opulence and material prosperity, any householder's house where the devotees of the Lord are never allowed to come in, and where there is no water for washing their feet, is to be considered a tree in which all venomous serpents live. Purport. In this verse, the word Tirthapadiya indicates devotees of the Lord Vishnu or Vaishnavas. As far as Brahmanas are concerned, in the previous verse, the mode of reception has been already described. Now in this verse, special stress is being given to the Vaishnavas. Generally, the sannyasis, or those in the renounced order of life, take trouble to enlighten the householders. There are Ekadandi sannyasis and Tridandi sannyasis. The Ekadandi sannyasis are generally followers of Shankaracharya and are known as Mayavadi sannyasis, whereas the Tridandi sannyasis are followers of Vaishnava acharyas, Ramanuja acharya, Madhva acharya, and so on, and they take the trouble to enlighten the householders. Ekadandi sannyasis can be situated on the platform of pure Brahman because they are aware that the spirit soul is different from the body, but they are mainly impersonalists. The Vaishnavas know that the absolute truth is the Supreme Person and that the Brahman effulgence is based on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14:27. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. The conclusion is that the Tirthapadiya refers to Vaishnavas. In the Bhagavatam 1:13:10, there is also another reference. Tirthi kuvanti tirthani. Wherever he goes, a Vaishnava immediately makes that place a tirtha, a place of pilgrimage. The Vaishnava sannyasis travel all over the world to make every place a place of pilgrimage by the touch of their lotus feet. It is mentioned here that any house which does not receive a Vaishnava in the manner already explained in the previous verses is to be considered the residential quarters of venomous serpents. It is said that around the sandalwood tree, which is a very valuable tree, there is a venomous serpent. Sandalwood is very cold, and venomous serpents, because of their poisonous teeth, are always very warm, and they take shelter of the sandalwood trees to become cooler. Similarly, there are many rich men who keep watchdogs or doormen and put up signs that say, "Do not enter, trespassers not allowed, beware of the dog," etc. Sometimes in Western countries, a trespasser is shot, and there is no crime in such shooting. This is the position of demoniac householders, and such houses are considered to be the residential quarters of venomous snakes. Members of such families are no better than snakes because snakes are very much envious. And when the envy is directed to the saintly persons, their position becomes more dangerous. It is said by Chanikya Pandit that there are two envious living entities, the snake and the envious man. The envious man is more dangerous than the snake because a snake can be subdued by charming mantras or by some herbs, but an envious person cannot be pacified by any means. Purport. Om Jnanatamarandhyasya Jnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dudati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kantana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vishubhanu Shruti Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I see we have a guest. Hello. Welcome. What's your name? Anita Shrestha. Where are you from?
From Washington, I just recently.
Oh, okay. Did you go to the temple there in Washington sometimes?
Not this one temple, just the regular temple.
Oh, okay.
This one was too far.
Okay. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming. Yeah. Okay, so we have a nice, beautiful verse, beautiful purport, kind of far out purport. So Prabhupada says there about the no trespassing signs. Beware of dog. Yeah, Texas is very demonic place. Anyhow, but one thing that can be pointed out here above all other things is this concept of Vaishnava etiquette, which is very, very important. Lord Chaitanya said that the Vaishnava etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. And Lord Chaitanya said he's very, very pleased by Vaishnava etiquette. When His Grace Padmanayan Prabhu was here, we had asked some questions, and Padmanayan Prabhu said it's very, very difficult to be Krishna conscious in Kali Yuga. Extraordinarily difficult. But for one who always follows Vaishnava etiquette, it's very easy. So we have to learn the etiquette of a Vaishnava. So Prabhupada was asked, he said, what does it mean to be your disciple? How will you recognize my disciples? So Prabhupada said that they should be perfect gentlemen, perfect ladies and gentlemen. So it's funny because we can think so many things about ecstatic love, prema bhakti, but actually Srila Prabhupada said we should be recognized by being perfect gentlemen. So that's first and foremost, that the spiritual master and the shastras are giving us knowledge as to how to become a real human being, a civilized personality. And by living in such a way, one doesn't incur horrible karma, ugra karma. One has to come to the mode of goodness, or the sattva gun, before they can actually have any type of God consciousness. So much of our sadhana and so much of our process in Krishna consciousness is based on developing sattva gun. And by sattva gun, we can develop the qualities of Vaishnavas and the etiquette that comes along with that. So, we take a vow to follow 4 regulative principles: no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. And that basically brings us to the mode of goodness, because those other activities, meat eating is the mode of ignorance, illicit sex is the mode of passion and ignorance, gambling is the mode of ignorance. So these things are of the lower modes of material nature. So by ceasing those things, we begin to develop the mode of goodness, because we are situated on the platform of religiousness, austerity, austerity, mercy, cleanliness, and truthfulness. So in order to be in the mode of goodness, we need to have these things. And therefore we can then begin to practice spiritual life. So that also applies with the way we deal with each other, with the way we deal with guests, how we deal with so many things. And that's very pleasing to Krishna. Bhakti is more subtle than, say, karma yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has 3 yogas he speaks about. In the first 6 chapters, he speaks of karma yoga. And then the next 6 chapters, he speaks of bhakti yoga. In the last 6 chapters, he speaks of jnana yoga. So the karma yoga is this concept of yagyartat kamayon yatra lokayam karma bandha, that we're doing our duty, our varnashram duty, wherever we're situated, we're doing our duty as an offering to Krishna. That's very nice. It's very pious. But when Lord Chaitanya was speaking with Ramananda Roy, Lord Chaitanya rejected that as the highest dharma. Because the higher dharma is that we are trying to please, or actively trying to please Krishna. And I think it is in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, on the verse Yat Karosi Yat Ashnasi Yat Jahosi Dadasi Yat Tapasyasi Konteya Tat Karoso Manarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you eat, whatever you give away in charity, whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. And so Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's extraordinarily elevated acharya in our line, and he when he gives commentaries in the Bhagavad Gita, he does it in such a way that he's speaking in the mind of Krishna and in the mind of Arjuna as to why Krishna is saying a certain thing. He knows Arjuna is thinking this, so he's saying this verse. So the verse before that is Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Whoever offers me with love and devotion, a leaf, water, fruit, flower, I will accept it. And so Vishwanath, he explains that Krishna was thinking, Arjuna is thinking, I can't do this. I can't do that in the battlefield. So Krishna is saying, whatever you do, just do it for me. And that's kind of karma yoga in an essence. That whatever we're doing, we're trying to offer the results to Krishna. Whereas bhakti yoga is more subtle. That we're not just offering the results to Krishna, we're actually performing what Krishna wants. We're actually doing things in such a way that they're very pleasing to Krishna. We're doing our activities in a way that pleases Krishna, as an offering of love to Krishna. So in the commentary, Vishwanath says basically that the difference between bhakti yoga and karma yoga is that bhakti yoga is offered from the beginning. The whole action is offered to Krishna. And karma yoga is offered at the end. The result of the action is offered to Krishna. So we're trying to practice bhakti yoga, not karma yoga. And that means there's more subtlety involved than just doing our duty and calling that bhakti. The bhakti means everything is thought, word, and action, an offering to Krishna. And so that seriously applies with the way we deal with each other. That is the biggest, in my experience, especially when I was in India, what I experienced from the most advanced Vaishnavas that I had met. And I met a lot of really amazing Vaishnavas in Mayapur while I was staying there. One of the things that kind of came up, themes, was the way we deal with other Vaishnavas is the most essential part of our making advancement in Krishna consciousness, is learning how to deal with other Vaishnavas. And in that way, you can learn to deal with all living entities in a peaceful and gentle way as an offering of love to Guru and Krishna. And I'm sharing a kind of a personal realization, but that's also confirmed in the Shastras. In the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila Dev explains the bhakti yoga in the mode of goodness, bhakti yoga in the mode of passion, bhakti yoga in the mode of ignorance. And he says all these really far out verses about those who worship the deity or who perform japa and do all these things without seeing the supersoul in other living entities. They're like, it's equivalent to throwing oblations into the ashes. So if we're worshiping the deity, we're chanting Hare Krishna, but we're not treating the other living entities with love and respect, and with the consciousness that the Supreme Lord is situated in their heart, then that type of sadhana is equivalent to taking oblations of ghee and butter, and instead of throwing them into the fire, throwing them into the ashes. So they're useless, in other words. Therefore, that concept of developing the proper interaction between each other and between other devotees is so important. And that's why bhakti yoga is done together. It's done in the association of devotees. And actually, it's offensive if we try to perform it outside the association of devotees, just like Bharat Maharaj. And also in the Bhagavatam, Vishwanath explains that Bharat Maharaj committed an offense, and that's why he fell down, the subtle offense of thinking he could go to the forest and perform his devotional activities without the association of the devotees. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing another example of how a great devotee is receiving other great devotees, and how he's receiving them into his home in proper Vaishnava etiquette. And so I was thinking there's a lot of beautiful stories in the scriptures that are demonstrating this. And Krishna himself, the classic story that comes to mind is Sudama, the Sudam Brahmin. Krishna himself set the example of how to receive a saintly guest. There's a beautiful pastime that Sudama Brahmin and Krishna, they attended the Gurukul under Sandapani Muni together. So they were together as children, and there's a beautiful pastime of how they went out to collect firewood for their spiritual master. And in the course of trying to fulfill the order of their guru, a serious and horrendous storm appeared, and Krishna and Sudama, while out collecting firewood, were stuck in this storm, and they took shelter of each other. And next morning, the guru, Sandapani Muni, and the rest of the boys went out to find Krishna and Sudama. And when they found them, they were, still alive. Well, Krishna's always going to be alive, right? He's Krishna. He's the one who caused the storm too. It's just a pastime. But Sudama was so pleased by this, determination to serve the guru, that Krishna had showed the determination to serve his guru and to even weather the storm just to bring firewood for the guru. And he was very pleased by this. So then, they grew up, and Sudama lived a very Brahminical life, and Krishna became, he was a Kshatriya, so he acted in that capacity as a Kshatriya. Back in those days, all the Varnas went to the Gurukul. And then after that was finished, they would separate into their Varna. And so someone was going to stay brahmachari and take sannyas, there's no Varna. They're always just actually in the Brahminical platform. But for Grihastas, then there's Varna. That means now they have to work in the world. So there's the Varna. They're either going to work as Kshatriyas or work as Brahmins, work as Sudras, work as Vaishyas. So then Sudama was very, very poor. He had very little money and very little food. In fact, he was emaciated and very hungry, and his wife was very, very hungry. And it was described that he would actually feed his wife. He would starve himself. So one day, his wife came to him and said, "My dear Sudama, we're very poor, and you're friends with Krishna, the Lord of Dwarka. And if you so desire, you could go and ask him for some charity, please. We need some help." And so Sudama was very reluctant to act in such a way, because pure devotees don't want to ask anything of Krishna. Anya bilashita shunyam gyanam karmanyunavritam anukulyena krishnana shilanam bhakti-ritama. The pure devotee doesn't act in devotional service for any type of fruitive activity or mental speculation. He only wants to serve Krishna. And there's a nice purport in the third canto that I kind of been meditating on, that Lord Kapila Dev is explaining, and Prabhupada explains, that a pure devotee doesn't even ask for spiritual benefit or material benefit. A pure devotee is simply satisfied with whatever service Krishna gives him, and whatever realization he attains is Krishna's mercy. And he's happy and grateful for that. And he's situated on the platform of pure devotional service. But that desire to have more realization and to know Krishna deeper, that is considered a type of what is it? The curious person who comes toward the Lord, who wants to have knowledge, those who are seeking knowledge. So that's not even considered pure devotional service. The pure devotee is just simply satisfied with whatever service Krishna gives him, and whatever realization comes from that service is of its own accord, which is actually the highest realization if you can be on that level anyways. It's really amazing. So Sudama was very, very reluctant to act in such a capacity. Therefore, he thought, I will go see Krishna, but I may not ask him. But I would love to see him because I'm a devotee. He loves Krishna. He was a devotee. So he then thought, I have to bring something for Krishna. I can't go to Krishna and not bring something. But what did he have to give? So then he had some, chip rice, very, very cheap, chip rice that he felt unworthy to offer Krishna. And so then he went on his way to see Krishna and went through the beautiful gates in Dwarka, pearl, golden gates. And it's described that, the guards, they didn't stop the Brahmins from entering. So he entered in and he saw Krishna. Krishna received him very gloriously. Krishna gave him a seat. Krishna began to bathe his feet and showing the example of how to receive a Brahmin. So very, very wonderful. So Krishna himself, he was a householder. He set the example of all other householders. Prabhupada says that we should follow in Krishna's footsteps because he was the ideal householder, although we can't imitate Krishna because Krishna had 16,108 wives and 16,108 palaces that he lived in simultaneously with each wife. We can't imitate that. But Krishna's activities, we can understand as a householder, were perfect. It's described, and there's that beautiful chapter in the Krishna book, how Krishna was with Narada Muni, went to go see the activities of Krishna. And so Krishna would wake up when the chickens would begin to cuckoo, whatever chickens do, coo, whatever sound they make. The chickens would make their sounds, and then Krishna would rise, and it's described that the queens of Dwarka, Rukmini and Satyabhama, they'd become very angry at the sound of the chicken because of the rooster, because that would wake Krishna, and they were enjoying having Krishna in their embrace. Then Krishna would wake up, and he would immediately begin to meditate on himself. He would wash his mouth, clean his hands, and then meditate on himself. And Prabhupada says not to imitate that we should follow Krishna's example and also meditate on Krishna. We don't meditate on ourselves, we meditate on Krishna. But Krishna is the supreme Godhead, so he can meditate on himself. So Krishna would then meditate on himself, and he would rise, he would perform oblations into the fire, the sacrificial fire. In other words, for us, he would perform the morning duties of a Brahmin, and in that age, or of a householder, in that age, they were offering oblations and things. But our age, we go to Mangalartik, we chant Hare Krishna, we chant our japa. So Krishna would perform all these activities, and then he would give lots of charity to the Brahmins. And he would feed guests, and he would do so many activities. Krishna would marry his daughters and do so many things in his various households. But in all respects, Krishna was a perfect householder. He was living and showing the example of how to perform one's duties expertly and properly. So Krishna received the Brahmins very nicely. He received Sudam, he bathed his feet, he spoke sweet words to him. They had nice, loving, sweet words and exchanges. And then, nice part of the pastime, Sudam was feeling like, I can't offer this to Krishna, but Krishna can understand everything because Krishna is in the heart of all living entities. So he said, my dear Sudama, I know you brought me some nice, tasty boga, but you're not offering it to me. And so Sudama was very embarrassed. He had the chip rice, didn't want to give it to Krishna, but Krishna snatched it from his hand, and Krishna ate it with great relish because of the love that was saturated that offering. Krishna ate it. But as Krishna was going to take another bite, Rukmini stopped Krishna, because Krishna said, the idea is that Rukmini stopped Krishna from taking another bite because just by that offering of chipped rice to Krishna, the goddess of fortune, Rukmini, Krishna's consort, was so obliged to Sudama that she couldn't give anything more to him. She said, no, you got to stop because, just that one bite is enough for me to give him everything. So Krishna, they stop and they have some more loving exchanges. Then Sudama goes home, and when he comes home, he has this beautiful palace. Everything is very nice. So, yeah, Krishna knows how to receive guests. And there's beautiful other pastimes. And also in regards to our Vaishnava etiquette, like Lord Chaitanya, I've been really hearing the Chaitanya Bhagavat a lot, like constantly. And there's a very common theme in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that Lord Chaitanya will deliver you if you chant Hare Krishna and you don't offend the Vaishnavas. But for one who offends the Vaishnavas, one who doesn't have good etiquette with the other devotees, then that person is very, very much doomed. It's very hard for them to make any type of spiritual progress. So there's a nice pastime that I've told the different devotees, but I'll tell it in class because some of you might not have heard it, but it's a beautiful pastime that demonstrates this kind of fact. So Lord Chaitanya, he was always worshiping Advaita Acharya. Because Advaita Acharya was his senior. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. But to show the proper way for us, the Lord incarnated as Lord Chaitanya as his devotee. He incarnated as his own devotee. And he's God himself acting as his devotee. It was very extraordinary. And so because Advaita Acharya was the senior most Vaishnava in Navadvip, Lord Chaitanya always treated him with great love and reverence, worshipped him. But Advaita Acharya was aware of Lord Chaitanya's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Krishna himself. So this was very, very troublesome to Advaita Acharya. In fact, it would make him very, very angry and very upset that the Lord was worshiping him. And he felt himself very unfortunate because he wanted to be worshiping the Lord. And so he had to devise a plan to become chastised by the Lord. So Advaita Acharya then had this idea come to him that I'm going to devise a plan to have the Lord chastise me. So he went back to Shantipur and he began to preach Mayavad philosophy. He began to preach impersonalism. And it's kind of so far out, He began to preach all this impersonalism, and Lord Chaitanya heard about it. Lord Chaitanya became furious. Advaita Acharya is preaching impersonalism. He said, I'm going to go give a piece of my mind. So Lord Chaitanya decided that Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda began to go to Shantipur. And it's actually quite a ways from Navadvip to Shantipur. It's it's a good way. The train ride's kind of long. How long is it, Ajitesh? If you were to, 1.5 hours, yeah. Walk or train ride?
No.
Bus, okay. So it's a good walk. So it's a good while. And Lord Chaitanya was on his way to Shantipur, and he was going to beat up Advaita Acharya for preaching this type of philosophy. But on the way, an interesting thing happens. On the way, as he's going, one sannyasi appears and says, oh, come into my hermitage, please enter, please come in. And so Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, agreed. And Lord Chaitanya is not a sannyasi yet, he still is a householder Brahmin. Lord Nityananda is an avadut. So they entered the house. And the first thing they see is there's a sannyasi with saffron robes and sannyas danda, the whole thing. And then, this is my wife. There's a big red flag there, that there's a sannyasi with a wife. So Lord Chaitanya is like, okay, and they sit down and they say, oh, we got to go. But the sannyasi says, no, you must eat here. You must eat. And then the sannyasi blesses Lord Chaitanya. He says, I bless you that you have a beautiful wife. You have lots of opulence. You have an incredible material life. And Lord Chaitanya says, why did you curse me like this? And why are you cursing me like this? This is not a blessing. And then the Vaishnava, the sannyasi became very furious. He says, who are you to speak to me, to instruct me? I am, I've traveled all over. And, he began to kind of speak like that. Now, I know that these are the things that, bring happiness. And then later on, you can make spiritual advancement. So Lord Chaitanya was kind of bewildered, but Lord Nityananda kind of pacified the situation. So they agreed to have prasadam, and they had prasadam. And it was a very pleasing atmosphere. They were speaking with the sannyasi, and they were having prasadam. And Lord Chaitanya was pleased by the prasadam. And then afterward, the sannyasi, so-called sannyasi, said, okay, he says, now do you want some happiness? And Lord Chaitanya, he was unaware of what was being spoken about. He says, it's time for some happiness. And Lord Nityananda had traveled all over India as a child, as a teenager. So Lord Nityananda was a little more savvy to what was going on. And Lord Chaitanya had asked, what does he mean by this happiness? And Lord Nityananda said, I think he means he wants to bring us liquor. He wants to get drunk. And so Lord Chaitanya was very, very, he said, "Oh, we got to go." And then they ran out and jumped in the Ganges. But Vrindavan Das Thakur explains after that although this sannyasi was very sinful, he was hypocritical sannyasi wearing saffron with a wife, drinking alcohol. Although he's all these things, because he wasn't offensive to Lord Chaitanya, because he wasn't blasphemous, and because he served him, and because he offered him something, he achieved personal. He got to sit and eat with the personality of Godhead. He had a personal association with Lord Chaitanya. He received so much mercy from the Lord. And Vrindavan Das Thakur says he may not go to the spiritual world in this life, but he will go to the spiritual world. So he did receive Krishna's mercy simply by not being offensive, by having that etiquette of receiving the Lord, even though he was extraordinarily sinful. So we can see in this pastime that the Lord, even though it was with this sinful person, still gave him mercy because he followed this etiquette nicely. So that's a nice pastime. And then they jumped in the Ganges and floated to Shantipur. And then Lord Chaitanya saw Advaita Acharya and began to beat him, punch him. And Advaita Acharya was saying, "Yes, finally, this is everything I wanted, to be chastised by the Lord." Lord Chaitanya was beating. It's kind of a crazy scene because then Sita Devi comes out and screaming. She's like, "Stop! He's an old man." It's a big dramatic scene. But Advaita Acharya is feeling like in ecstasy because Lord is fulfilling his desire. Right? He's fulfilling the desire of everybody. So the Lord is punching Advaita Acharya. But the Lord is fulfilling Advaita Acharya. He's fulfilling his devotee's desire to be chastised. And so it's very, very nice. That's also a good example. And there's also a good example of, I think another funny Lord Chaitanya pastime is in the Madhya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's one pastime where the Lord is to be received by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya for prasadam. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had become purified by his conversation with the Lord. He was a great Mayavadi scholar, and he was the guru of the King Prataparudra. He was considered the foremost scholar in India at that time. And he had become purified by the association with the Lord. Of course, he discoursed on Vedanta Sutra for 7 days, and the Lord listened, and then the Lord rebuted his explanation. And by the Lord's immense potency, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya surrendered and became a very great Vaishnava. And he wrote all these very beautiful songs and verses glorifying Lord Chaitanya. So he became a very wonderful Vaishnava, fully surrendered, and had a lot of association with Lord Chaitanya during his later years, later half of his life. So once there was a opportunity for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to invite Lord Chaitanya for prasadam at his house. You can just see the eagerness and how he was received. But it's kind of funny because his son-in-law, his son-in-law Amoga, was a fault finder, was very offensive, and so he offended Lord Chaitanya, or he acted offensively toward Lord Chaitanya. But we'll see what happens. So I just read that pastime. So I just give a background because I don't want to read. There's a lot of reading here. So Sarvabhauma was invited the Lord agreed, and then now they're cooking. So at Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house, there was always a full stock of food. Whatever spinach, vegetables, fruit, and so on were required, he collected and brought back home. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya personally began to help Sahirtha Mata cook. She was very experienced and she knew how to cook nicely. On the southern side of the kitchen were 2 rooms for offering food, and in one of them, food was offered to Shalagram Narayan. The other room was for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lunch. The Lord's lunchroom was very secluded, and it was newly constructed by the Bhattacharya. The room was so constructed that there was only one door opening on the outside, which served as an entrance for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There was another door attached to the kitchen, and it was through this door that the food was brought. First, 3 manas of cooked rice, almost 6 pounds, were poured onto a big banana leaf. Then there was a whole stack of rice was mixed with so much yellowish and fragrant clarified butter that it began to overflow the leaf. There were a number of pots made of bark of banana trees and leaves of of the kea plant. These pots were filled with various cooked vegetables and placed on all sides of the leaf. There were about 10 kinds of spinach, a soup called shukta, which was made with bitter nimba leaves, a pungent preparation made with black pepper, a mild cake made of fried curd, and buttermilk mixed with small fried pieces of dal. And you see there was no expense spared for Lord Chaitanya's meal. And it just goes on to describe all the various types of wonderful food. I don't want to read it all the way because it's kind of long, actually. It's just continuing verse after verse after verse. So there was sweet rice mixed with ghee, was poured within an earthen pot. There's so much food. They're continuing on. Yeah, it's still continuing. Lots of verses describing the prasadam. Oh yeah, so here we go. After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, so we received. When everything was ready, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came there alone after finishing his midday duties. He knew the heart of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya washed the Lord's feet, right? So when the devotees come, you wash their feet, you treat them very respectfully. Nice purport yesterday, Prabhupada explained, if you can't do this, then do this. And just offer them a sitting place and a glass of water. So when I was in India, it was funny because I was with my Guru Maharaj, and everywhere we'd go, it was like the whole foot washing thing. It was kind of intense because they want to wash our feet too. It's kind of intense. After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya washed the Lord's feet, the Lord entered the room to take his lunch. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a little astonished to see the gorgeous arrangement and gesturing. He spoke to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. This is most uncommon. How is this arrangement of rice and vegetables finished within 6 hours? Even 100 men cooking on 100 stoves could not possibly finish all these preparations within such a short time. I hope the food has already been offered to Krishna, since I see there are tulsi leaves and flowers on it. You are most fortunate, and your endeavor is successful, for you have offered such a wonderful food to Radha and Krishna. The color of the rice is so attractive, and its aroma is so good that it appears Radha and Krishna have directly taken it. My dear Bhattacharya, your fortune is very great. How much shall I praise you? I am also very fortunate to be able to take the remnants of this food. Take away Krishna's sitting place and put it aside, then give me prasadam on a different plate. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, It is not so wonderful, my lord. Everything has been made possible by the energy and mercy of him who will eat the food. My wife and I did not especially exert ourselves in this cooking. He, by whose power the food has been prepared, knows everything. Now please sit in this place and take your lunch. The Bhattacharya said, both the food and the sitting place are the Lord's mercy. If you can eat the remnants of the food, what is the offense in you sitting in this place? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, Yes, you have spoken correctly. The Shastras enjoin that the devotee can partake of everything left by Krishna. My dear Lord, the garlands, scented substances, garments, ornaments, and other such things that have been offered to you may later be used by your servants. By partaking of these things and eating the remnants of food you have left, you will be able to conquer the illusory energy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, There is so much food here that is impossible to eat it all. After all, at Jagannath Puri, you eat 50 times. I'm so sorry about what the Acharya is replying. After all, at Jagannath Puri, you eat 52 times a day, and each time you eat hundreds of buckets filled with prasadam. At Dwarka, you keep 16,000 queens and 16,000 palaces. Also, there are 18 mothers and numerous friends and relatives of the Yadu dynasty. In Vrindavan, you also have your father's elder brothers, your father, your younger brothers, maternal uncles, husbands, your father's sisters, your many cowherd men. There are also cowherd boyfriends you eat twice a day, morning and evening, in the house of each one every day. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is continuing glorifying Lord Chaitanya. But then it says, here's the interesting kind of funny part. So hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and sat down to eat. The Bhattacharya with great pleasure first offered him the Jagannath Prasadam. At this time, the Bhattacharya had a son-in-law named Amoga, who was the husband of his daughter Sati. Although born in an aristocratic Brahmin family, Amoga was a great fault finder and blasphemer. This is the bane of all Vaishnavas, is the fault finder, blasphemer. Amoga wanted to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eat, but he was not allowed to enter. Indeed, the Bhattacharya guarded the threshold of his house with a stick in his hand. However, as soon as the Bhattacharya began distributing the prasadam and was a little inattentive, Amoga came in. Seeing the quantity of food, he began to blaspheme. This much food is sufficient to satisfy 10 or 12 men, but this sannyasi alone is eating so much. As soon as Amoga said this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya turned his eyes upon him. Seeing the Bhattacharya's attitude, Amoga immediately left. Bhattacharya ran after him to strike him with a stick, but Amoga fled so fast that the Bhattacharya could not catch him. The Bhattacharya then began to curse his son-in-law and call him ill names. When the Bhattacharya returned, he saw that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was laughing to hear him criticize Amoga. When Sati's mother, the Bhattacharya's wife, heard of this incident, she immediately began to strike her head and chest, saying again and again, "Let Sati become a widow." So it's very, very intense and emotional devotees of Lord Chaitanya. The Lord was blaspheming in their presence. So they became very furious. Seeing the lamentation of both husband and wife, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tried to pacify them according to the desire. He ate the prasadam and was very satisfied. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finished eating, the Bhattacharya poured water for the Lord to wash his mouth, hands, and legs, and offered him flavored spices, tulsi manjaris, cloves, and cardamom. So it goes on, explains how beautiful, they received Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya apologizes for Amoga's offense. And then actually Amoga, he got cholera for the offense of criticizing the Lord. But he was delivered by Lord Chaitanya because Lord Chaitanya said, because he's related to you, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, such a wonderful devotee, he's dear to me, so I don't take the offense. But he did get cholera, and he got over it by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. So we'll just do a little discussion. I just had some pastimes to share. I didn't have much time to prepare because I was so absorbed in getting ready for today afternoon's class with the students. So anyhow, any questions, comments, realizations? Lavanga?
Yeah. I noticed, you see this quite often in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, like taking up prasadam and the description of prasadam and how there's like a big long list of everything that's served. Same thing happens when Lord Chaitanya goes to Advaita Acharya's house. You have this big long list of like everything that's served, and at some point, Krishna's Kaviraj says, I can't even name all the preparations that were there and serving Lord Chaitanya. And then again, when Haridas Thakur left his body, you see Lord Chaitanya serving all the devotees prasadam, and he's serving them all according to their favorite preparations. So just hearing this this story, it made me realize how like important also the taking of prasadam is like in our culture of Krishna consciousness. Because I was hearing a lady talk yesterday. She's married to an Italian, and she was saying how like her husband's so particular about food, and she's like, you don't understand, food is like their life. And I was like, I get it, because it's also like the same thing with us. We see in Shastra how taking up prasadam is similar.
Well, the difference is that we're happy if Krishna is happy, right? So even if the prasadam isn't so opulent, we're still happy because it's Krishna prasadam. But
we'll pretend to be happy. But I've been in places where everyone's like, yeah, we're going to just start serving granola every single day. And literally after a week, half the devotees are like, yeah, we want something else.
Parmeshwar eats granola every day, all day. Just sits in his van and eats granola and distributes Prabhupada's books. But we're not on his level. But anyhow, no, good prasadam. Prabhupada was very adamant about devotees having nice prasadam because it is important. It's attractive to Krishna. It brings people to Krishna. And, it's kind of it's like a lifeline. You have prasadam that's going to, get you through the day and the time. At least we have prasadam. But no, I love honestly, because I always listen to Chaitanya Leela or the Chaitanya Charitamrita when I do anything. I'm always listening to it. And so I take prasadam in my room sometimes, and sometimes, I like be taking prasadam while I was describing the Lord Chaitanya taking prasadam. It's really like ecstatic to hear Lord Chaitanya relishing prasadam, the devotees relishing prasadam, and then you're taking to. But during that pastime with Advaita Acharya and Lord Chaitanya at his house, that Lord Nityananda and Lord Advaita Acharya, they get in a fight, food fight, prasadam fight. So Lord Nityananda throws rice at Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya says, I've been touched by Lord Nityananda's prasadam, and he starts dancing in ecstasy.
The original food fight. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Vidya Mataji.
What was the timeline when Amoga, the son-in-law, criticized Lord Chaitanya for eating sweets because he saw ants?
That's not Amoga. That was
Oh,
Ramachandra.
Oh, that was
Ramachandra
somebody
Puri.
else.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Ramachandra Puri was really, really heinous criticizer. He's like, he would invite all the devotees over for prasadam, and then he would give them nice prasadam, and then he would criticize how much they ate. He couldn't criticize Mahaprabhu, so then he saw the ants in his room and said, "You must be eating sweets." I love that's a very insightful pastime also, because you see, the Lord Chaitanya was very humble with Ramachandra Puri. He was very humble. He accepted. He actually cut down his food take by, 2/3. He cut down or 3/4. He stopped eating, and all the devotees were like miserable to see Lord Chaitanya cut down his food stuff. And they hated Ramachandra Puri. They totally disliked him. And it's like we can think like, we gotta, devotees can't have any opinions, but Ramachandra Puri was a fault finder and a blasphemer. And so the devotees of the Lord, they were like, no, we want him out of here. And so when he left, they actually were all very happy. So sometimes you might find that there's some giant fault finder, criticizer, and when they disappear, you're like, yes, thank you. So it's insightful because they're personal. Like Atul Govinda Prabhu, I was asking him something and he was talking about, he's like Gurudev is personal, Lord Chaitanya is personal, like God is personal, God has feelings. We have feelings, and we can't like pretend to be impersonal and just deny all that. Then it kind of creates a very not a good atmosphere. So I think we're out of time. Yeah, it's 8:57. So Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki. What?